In a world with artificial intelligence, how do we transform education? Thanks for tuning in. I'm Daniel Lopez, and this is the AI Education Conversation, where we explore the opportunities, risks, and impacts of AI across education. If you'd like to join the conversation, check out the AIeducationconversation.com. Let's jump in. What's up, everyone? I'm thrilled to announce that I will be presenting at SequoiaCon 2024. If your team, school, or district, or institution for that matter, is ready to take the leap in exploring AI implementation, my session will support with strategies for implementation and navigating change management. The team at Evergreen is also giving any of my followers $50 off the conference registration if you use my code AICombo. You can register at the link in the show notes. Early bird registration ends on Thursday, February 1st. I hope to see you all at my session, Humans at the Heart of Education. Hey everyone, I hope the week is treating you well. We've held a lot of space on many episodes for educators and adults to share their perspectives on AI and education. A couple of weeks ago, we also had the opportunity to hear from Lily and Aditya, who lead and are affiliated with the student led AI X education movement regarding student perspectives on AI and education. One push that Lily and Aditya both offered during our conversation is the importance of giving students a seat at the table and allowing them to co create their educational experience with AI. So, that being said, I'm going to continue to push us in this direction. Today, I wanted to hold space for us to hear from 4,000 high school student voices who have thoughts on AI in education. The ACT recently published the largest study I have seen on student perceptions and mindsets of artificial intelligence. The study explores quite a few different topics, including how many students use AI, what types of AI they're using, why they're not using AI, their perspectives on career and writing, and school conditions with AI. When the opportunity came up to talk to the researchers who conducted the study, I was eager to dig into the study with them, gain more context on how they were receiving the results, and where they're going to go from here. In today's episode, I talk with Jeff Schiel, Becky Bobek, and Joyce Zhou-Yile Schnieders from the ACT research team. If you're interested in my 5 biggest takeaways, check out the companion show notes in the episode description or sign up for the conversation at the AIeducationconversation.com. FYI, I share all of my show notes with my community 12 hours before sharing on any of my social media networks. If you have any other thoughts on today's episode, you can join the conversation at the AIeducationconversation.com or message me on LinkedIn. Humans at the Heart of Education. Enjoy the episode. All right. Well, we got a really full house today. I'm really excited to welcome the research team from ACT. So I'm going to just get right into it, knowing that we're going to have some really exciting guests that we're going to talk to in just a second here. So if y'all wouldn't mind, would love to just open up some space for some brief introductions. Jeff, we'll start with you.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for having us on the podcast. We really appreciate the chance to talk with you about our research. And my name is Jeff Schiel. As far as my background, I'm a lead research scientist at ACT, and my PhD is in educational psychology with an emphasis in statistics and measurement. And I have about 21 years of survey research experience, and some of the things I specialize in are survey design, the methodology of surveys, and survey sampling. And one of my research interests is in high school students' educational experiences and plans. And so this work kind of ties in with that. I want to know what students are thinking about when they're in high school and what they're experiencing.
Good morning. My name is Becky Bobek, and I am a principal research scientist from ACT, and I have a multidisciplinary PhD in education from the University of Iowa, along with a research and practitioner background. And I specialize in how people navigate their education and career transitions successfully, particularly with a focus on the factors and experiences that help to contribute to making informed education and career choices.
Hey Daniel, my name is Joyce Schnieders. I'm a research scientist at ACT. I got my PhD degree in educational psychology and learning sciences at the University of Iowa. My specialty is using mixed methods to do education research. My research interests include the students' learning experiences, as well as their experiences as they explore their education and career options. Thanks for having us today.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for introducing yourselves. I'm really excited to just hear everybody's perspectives on this, what I consider to be a very intensive study that you all did. So we'll just jump right into that. But before we talk specifically about the study, one thing that piqued my curiosity is, I really know the work of the ACT because of the test, right? The ACT test. Can you share a little bit more about this research sector of the organization and maybe any other topics that you all are actively exploring? Obviously, I think part of this may be AI related, but just any topics that you could share a little bit more about.
Sure. Daniel, I'll go ahead and take that one. Yeah, you're right. ACT is I think mostly known among people for its tests. And we do have a research team at ACT that's been in place for many, many years, really since the founding of the company. And that team includes researchers from a variety of backgrounds and disciplines, as you could probably tell from the introduction that Joyce, Becky, and I gave. A lot of different skills and knowledge there. As a result, we can offer a wide spectrum of knowledge to support our mission, which is to help people achieve work, education, and workplace success. At ACT, we're always thinking of ways to develop research projects that will help us serve our mission and improve student readiness. And these projects can take on many different shapes. They can be validity and psychometric research around our products and solutions. They can be topical research like the AI tools research we'll discuss today. They can be research that provides educators and stakeholders with information to improve student readiness in states, districts, and in schools around the country. And just to give you an idea of the breadth of the research, I do have some examples of recent projects to share. The first of these is a recent study that looked at the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on two different things. It looked at the pandemic's effect on high school seniors' post-secondary plans and also their level of preparation for college. And as you might suspect, the study's data showed that both of these things were greatly affected by the pandemic. This same study also showed that most college-bound high school seniors felt they were academically ready for college, but the students indicated that they wanted more preparation for and insight into the college admissions process. And to look at a completely different type of study, some of our colleagues did work on grade inflation this year. And this was really interesting. They found that high school grade inflation is on the rise. And that to ACT, that revealed the difficulty of using GPA as a sole metric for academic readiness. It just doesn't work quite like it used to. Another study, this is a bit different too, and one that we do every year, is to look at graduating class data and look at average ACT test scores. We found that the average composite score on the ACT test was continuing to fall. And to us, that was a signal that the college readiness of high school students might be on the decline. So in the next year, we'll continue to explore these and other important topics. And one of these relates to what we're calling a digital divide. And that study will follow up on some research that ACT colleagues did back in 2018. That should be pretty exciting. So, Daniel, I hope that's helpful in kind of giving you an idea of ACT's research area and some of the things we do.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea. Thanks for sharing. It sounds like you all have hit quite a few critical issues that have really impacted our education landscape and, the last few years here. The study, though, that we're going to talk about today is really focused on artificial intelligence and in particular students mindsets and perceptions around that. I will say just before we get into the motivation why, one thing that really stood out to me when I had the opportunity to read this study was just how large your respondent size was. Candidly, I think it was around maybe just over 4,000 students that had responded to the survey that you've done. And I mean, I know you'll share more about that in just a second, but I would say that a lot of the surveys that I had been reading about or looking into over the past 12 months as everybody has just been digesting anything related to AI and trying to get an understanding of how the education landscape is receiving AI. I was very surprised to see over 4,000 respondents within this sample. So that really stood out to me. Before we get too much into the survey, though, let me just let me just take one step back and say, what? How did you all decide to research AI?
Well, the work on this study began in March 2023, and if you think back, at that time, ChatGPT was getting quite a bit of attention already. For example, some large school districts had already banned the use of that tool over concerns about potential academic dishonesty on the part of students. And we ran across one survey that reported that a majority of teachers and students who had used ChatGPT believed it had positively affected teaching and learning. And as we sort of looked at this stuff and thought about it, it looked to us as if ChatGPT and other AI tools were going to be a part of high school students' education experiences. And it just seemed like it would be fascinating to get information on how high school students were using this new technology and just what they thought of it. And so, you know, after looking at our data, one thing we noticed right away is that students had quickly started using AI tools. Nearly half of the students we surveyed reported that they were using those tools.
I think a lot of what you're saying there, Jeff, really resonates. I would say that when ChatGPT first came out in November, my first experience playing around with that tool in particular was about a month later during winter break. And I got into a rabbit hole, as I've explained in many episodes that I've done before, around just using ChatGPT. And I really became convinced that artificial intelligence was going to transform education. And so much so that I started this podcast. And I mean, this podcast is just, just completing its 1 year anniversary. And we continue to just explore the impacts that artificial intelligence might bring into education. So all that to say, I think the conclusion that you all were drawing around March of like, hey, this might be a bigger thing and this might really impact education. I felt similarly around that time. So, I mean, let's get into the study here. You had this really large study of students who were taking the ACT exam, and you were asking them questions specifically related to AI. Can you just say a little bit more about the methodology you all use, any types of questions that you were interested in digging into?
Certainly happy to do that. The students that we asked to participate in the study, and when I say participate, I mean we were asking them to just take a survey. These were students in grades 10 through 12 across the nation who had registered for the June 2023 ACT national test. And as you might guess, there were quite a few of those students. And from that group, we selected a random sample. And as you mentioned, about 4,000 of those from that random sample responded to the survey, which was also administered in June. And so we had questions in the survey that were really wide ranging on they covered the use of AI tools. If students indicated they weren't using AI tools, we asked them why not. We asked about the trustworthiness of AI, what students thought about that, the types of students AI was used for, the school policies on AI tools, and several others. And our goal was to try to explore the full landscape of AI use in high school. And in doing that, hopefully lay the groundwork for further research into this topic that just seems to keep evolving.
Yeah, that's helpful. So, I mean, at this point, I'm eagerly awaiting some additional context to some of the questions that you were just explored. So maybe we can turn to Joyce for this next question. Joyce, I'm curious to know from the work that you all did you find students are using AI? And if so, is it just Chat GPT?
Sure. As Jeff mentioned, yes, students have rapidly incorporated AI tools into their lives, with nearly half of students already using AI tools on a combination of school and non school assignments at the time of our survey. These AI tools are still very new, as we talked before. For example, ChatGPT has only been available for about a year. So this represents rapid adoption by a large number of students. And due to the timing of the survey, these numbers may have changed as the generative AI tools are becoming more popular. So the results we found in the survey may provide a conservative estimate of AI tool use among students. And in terms of what tools they were using, The AI tools students most often used were ChatGPT based on our survey results. Among the students who used the AI tools, 83% of them reported that they use ChatGPT. In addition to ChatGPT, students also mentioned using other AI tools such as DALI 2 and Bing Chat, but the percentage of using the other tools were lower compared to ChatGPT though.
Yeah, that resonates, Joyce. I appreciate that initial headline there. I totally agree with you first and foremost with the fact that not only, as you mentioned, you all are finding high numbers of students who are already using it in June 2023, but likely that number is probably even higher now, 6 months later, given that this was early technology and now it's continuing to come in further. I think the other thing that stood out to me when I had the opportunity to read pieces of this particular headline and survey was that there was a lot of students who were talking about Snapchat as their just the way that they were using artificial intelligence technology. I think one thing that I have personally been convinced of as I've been able to have more conversations around AI and education and related to the student experience is that tools such as social media and even video games, I think are going to continue to be two primary ways that our students are actually engaging with social media beyond ChatGPT.
We did provide students opportunities for like an open-ended question to let them talk about what other AI tools they used, and a lot of them did mention the social media tools like Snapchat.
So Joyce, let me ask you another question here. In figure two, you all asked students who weren't using AI, why aren't they using AI? And really what stood out to me was that the most popular reason that students weren't interested in using AI was, or excuse me, that the most popular reason was that students were not interested in using AI. So I'm just curious, based on the multitude of questions you're asking across the entire survey and some of the other questions that you explored, do you all maybe have like a thought here as to why so many of your students responded that way?
This is a really good question. Although AI tool use was prevalent among the students in our study, slightly more than half reported that they had not used AI tools at the time of the survey. And the main reasons for not using AI tools included like a lack of interest, as you mentioned, not trusting the information the AI tools provide, and not knowing enough about them. Without additional data, it is unclear why some students were not interested in using them. It could be a combination of different reasons. One interesting finding we'd like to talk about here is that for the reasons why not using AI tools, we actually examine the relationship between students' choices of reasons and their academic achievements. So we categorize students into three groups based on whether their ACT composite scores were in the top quarter of the score distribution among the survey respondents, in the middle half, or in the bottom quarter. If you look at another figure, figure 4 in our paper, we notice significant differences in the reasons for not using AI tools across students' academic achievement levels. Students with ACT scores in the top quarter were noticeably more likely than those with scores in the bottom quarter to reported the reason why not using AI tools was that they were not interested in using these tools. On the other hand, considerably larger percentage of students with ACT scores in the bottom quarter reported that they did not use AI tools because they did not have access to them. So, in the paper, we talked about one possible explanation of higher performing students' selection of not interested in using AI tools. It is likely that these higher performing students know how to use the tools, but at the same time, recognizing the tool's limitation, such as not always providing trustworthy information. And this recognition of the limitations may drive higher performing students' lack of interest in using them. But as I mentioned before, we need to collect more data to figure out why these students reported their no interest in using these AI tools.
Yeah, I think that division you called out is an interesting one, just based on the subgroups of students and just seeing that their perceptions seem to vary a little bit. I also think one potential speculation for this piece could be the fact that, And I think you all might have referenced this at some point in your paper where you're talking about how students are using AI. And I noticed that one of the reasons that stood out to me was just around the fact that a lot of students were using it for entertainment purposes. And so part of my curiosity is whether or not students just see AI as something that is fun, right? You can create some fun little images with it, or you can use it for, nifty little purposes on social media, but not really seeing it as a tool that would be helpful to, supporting or enhancing their academic experience in the class. So, as you said, there's a lot more to dig into there and to gain some clarity up there. Turning the page a little bit here, I know that in 2023, so much of the mainstream media dialogue around artificial intelligence and education was the fact that there was a lot of large school districts, New York public schools most notably, that came out and banned artificial intelligence. And so you all actually asked students within the context of their local schools and districts to share their responses on if their schools were banning AI or not. And so I'm curious to just know what did you all find there?
Yeah, we actually asked students two questions about school banning AI tools. First, we asked them whether their school had banned AI tools on their school owned networks and devices at the time of the survey. And second, we asked them whether the students think their school should ban AI tools or not. Let's first talk about whether their schools had banned AI tools or not. Although about one fourth of students reported that their schools had banned AI tools on school owned networks and devices, a majority did not know if this was the case at their schools. And in terms of the second question, whether students think their schools should ban AI tools on school owned networks and devices, 42% of the students indicated yes, about one third indicated no, and nearly one fourth indicated that they did not know whether this should be done. One issue that schools should consider when deciding whether to ban AI tools or not is whether there is equal access to these tools. Based on our findings, many students are already using these tools for their schoolwork. So, if a student only is allowed to use AI tools with their home devices, then students with very limited access to electronic devices at home may have an educational disadvantage.
Yeah, Joyce, I could not agree more with your response there. I think that first and foremost, if we are seeing that a lot of school districts are banning AI tools or students are just unaware of those policies, I have no doubt that that is probably also playing into just their mindsets and perceptions of the technology overall. And then even to the second thing that you said, that also is something that I've thought a lot about, which is if a student is going home and let's say that their primary use cases of AI or tools like Snapchat, video games, or even Chat GPT, that for that matter. But then they're going to the classroom, and then the classroom is just not giving them the same access to those types of tools or technology. There's going to be mindsets, there's going to be perceptions, there's going to be judgments that a student is developing based on the experiences that they're having at home, the access of these tools that they have. And if the fact that that's not aligned in the classroom, I can definitely just see instances where there's just going to be a division. And I think as you were just saying there, potentially as well, that's perpetuating educational inequity for certain school districts if students don't have access to those tools in the classroom and then other schools do. I would love to transition to talk about another part of the study. I know that there was just so much so many good figures and so many good insights that I was digging into here. So just to make sure that we're covering a lot of the other pieces here. Becky, I have a question for you. So another interesting section I found was around student mindsets for the future. And I know that we've talked a lot about AI's potential to disrupt the workforce, or at least I've done so quite a bit on this podcast. And it seems like currently AI is there's a lot of main companies that are doing so much to try to adopt and experiment with AI. But that being said, from a student perspective standpoint, are students buying into it? Are you noticing that they are prioritizing different sectors or different job type roles based on artificial intelligence?
This finding was interesting given discussions that you've had and others about AI and workforce disruptions. When students were asked whether the emergence of AI tools had caused them to shift their thinking about education and career plans, 3 out of 4 students reported that AI tools had not caused them to consider different or new career options. There was a similar finding among students reporting that AI tools had not caused them to consider alternative college majors or programs of study either, the education paths toward their career choices. This may be due to the skepticism among students not using AI, or that students using AI are finding errors when they do use these tools. I mean, this may have students thinking that AI may not or would not influence their future choices.
I find that reaction so interesting personally. I think if someone were to ask me that question, or if you all were to have shared that question before sharing the results, my personal hypothesis would have been that students were going to change their career searches, or we would be seeing shifts in that based on that. And it seems like as you were describing, it's not leading to anything really significant here. I'm worried about that, to be honest. I'm worried about it because I see currently across the landscape the workforce working fast and furious to experiment with AI to be able to determine how they're going to adopt it. There obviously could be a lot of reasons why they're not doing it, such as some of the things we've already talked about. They're not having access to it in school, opportunities to actually play around with the tools. That's obviously going to impact their perception there.
Yeah, I actually kind of building off your point, I think even perhaps the timing of the survey could influence students' current responses to that question. And if the survey is done again a year from now or 2 years from now, when we see the actual movements in the workforce, their responses may be different.
Yeah, totally. I hope so. So let me ask you another question here. I know because so I'm by day, beyond hosting this podcast, a big part of my work is I'm in college access, and I, love supporting students with that process and helping our young people be able to successfully apply and attend post-secondary institutions. And I was really interested to see some of the questions you were asking students about college admissions essays, like the personal statement. And so I know that you all had asked students to share their perceptions about using AI for college admissions essays. And this is actually something as well beyond just like my personal interest that I get asked about often with other educators who are curious about AI's role in writing essays and of various types. How are students perceiving or using AI in the context of their college admissions essays? And how do they think they should or should not be using it?
This finding really surprised me, Daniel. 9 out of 10 of the surveyed students reported that they had not considered using AI tools to write their college admission essays. Among the 10% of students who had considered using AI tools, the main reasons were to help them with articulating the information they wanted to share with colleges or universities and to improve the quality of their essays. I mean, specifically, they thought it would help with grammar and sentence composition, generating ideas, for example. They also thought AI tools would be easy, save time, and reduce their workload. I remember one student commented, it would be easy and neat. I would be able to say everything I wanted to say quicker, faster, and easier. Now, among the students who had not considered using AI tools for writing their essays, their primary reasons were the limitations related to writing essays and concerns about the consequences of using the AI tools for that purpose. If we look at the limitations they perceived related to using AI tools, they provided things such as AI had an inability to be personalized. AI was not able to represent original and authentic writing. It wouldn't reflect their own writing and communication skills or their unique writing style. And one student even remarked that college essays are meant to reflect the values, experiences, and goals unique to each student, not what an AI tool generated. For the students who reported concerns about the consequences of using AI tools to write essays, some of the things they pointed out was they thought that it was dishonest and unethical. They were cheating. It wasn't fair to those who didn't use it if they did. They also reported getting caught and rejected was a consequence that they did not want to experience. One student indicated because AI use is detectable, which would probably result in me getting rejected. Some thought it defeated the purpose of the essay to show colleges and universities how a student would fit with their environments. And some even thought it would undermine their own learning and growth. They would not be able to enhance their writing skills or allow them to learn more about building a compelling essay, which is an important function in college. So it was really interesting.
God, man, our young people are just so talented and smart. And hearing you talk, and then also when I had the opportunity to read that section, I just felt pride in so many of the students that are navigating this like increasingly complex educational landscape in a world with AI. Because I think for folks who don't know much about artificial intelligence and education, and you start to do Google searches about some of the stories that are out there, you don't have to click very far to see so much of the current mainstream dialogue is around writing. It's around the fact that schools think students are going to cheat and use AI to write essays or written assignments to just take shortcuts across their educational experience. And when I see the results of that section, it's very clear that this technology is not so black and white, right? Not every student is looking to take a shortcut. Not every student thinks that AI is the most talented thing ever. They are very just like adults. They are interrogating. They're trying to be thoughtful about where these tools make sense versus where they don't. They also have what it sounds like is a more nuanced perspective on what writing is and what it should be relative to what we give them credit for. So I mean, again, just in hearing you talk, I'm just so proud of our young people, and I think we need to give them more credit about how they are going to be able to adapt to a world of artificial intelligence, because we're just making assumptions that every student is going to start using AI to write all of their essays in class and take shortcuts. And the big response has been, we should have all these AI writing detectors now, and that's the way that we have to respond. When clearly, as your study describes, there are so many students that actually don't believe that. Now, granted, I know that this is in the context of a very specific assignment and the personal statement in that way. But when I just see the level of nuance and some of the perspectives your students are saying, honestly, I just can't help but feeling proud of them.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have a very tech savvy group of young people who are really kind of picking up this tool or a set of tools and examining it, turning it around, thinking about it in different ways as they consider how to use it for their different purposes.
Yeah, Becky, I appreciate you walking us through some of the insights there. So I know that this study that you all published had so many different perspectives and headlines. And I know that there's things that we are just glossing over. So would really invite folks who are interested to check out the link in the episode show notes, really dig into this study. It's definitely worth your time. But just to make sure that we're not missing any other major headlines or interesting takeaways as you all were going through this experience, we would really just open the floor now. Maybe Becky, we could start with you. Joyce, then if you have anything, or Jeff, if you have anything after that, just any other major headlines or interesting takeaways that you all want to call out and make sure that we name in this space here.
Well, thanks, Daniel. I really appreciate that. I think what I pause at, especially when thinking about the study, is that even though many students are using these tools, many of them aren't. And I feel like that's a really interesting takeaway. And there's skepticism about these tools among the students who aren't using them. It's kind of shown through their responses to the use of AI tools for writing college essays. I mean, whether the students who aren't using them just don't have enough information about them, haven't really explored them enough, or they're just not trusting the information, or they've heard others or read about the content information being inaccurate. It strikes me as it's interesting that there's a sizable group that's not using these AI tools.
Yeah, another related point that I want to highlight here is that many students who already use AI tools reported errors when using these tools. A majority of students who had used AI tools for their school assignments indicated that they had found errors or incorrect information in the tool's responses. And more higher achieving students than lower achieving students reported finding errors when using AI tools. So it will also be important for educators to keep in mind the limitations of these AI tools, such as a tendency to generate incorrect information or make up articles that do not exist or a limited understanding of the concepts.
Well, Daniel, one thing that keeps coming back to me is just the rapid rate at which students adopted these tools. We talked about this before, but roughly half of the students in this study reported that they were already using the tools, even though they were pretty new at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate all you for sharing some of those headlines. I think really what I'm taking away from your insights and some of the things that we've discussed so far is as we've described is that so many students, as you mentioned, Jeff, are already using these tools, but these tools aren't perfect. So as you described, Joyce, and what I think I'm also hearing is that rather than us as educators, as policymakers, having to establish all of the guardrails around AI usage versus not, I think why don't we bring students into this conversation? Because it sounds like, Joyce, I think as you just said, they have an understanding too. They are noticing too that these tools are flawed and that they're not 100% accurate. So I think they're going to have some really vital insights to share around where it makes sense to use some of these tools in their educational experience versus where it doesn't. So really just looking forward to seeing more opportunities for us to be able to learn from our students, to be able to bring them into the conversation and to be able to let them create some of the experiences or the policies that define their educational experience. So, want to also ask you another question, Jeff. I think there was obviously so much you all addressed in this experience with the data that you all were able to collect. There's a lot of unanswered questions, though. I think we've already kind of alluded to one of the big unanswered questions in the context of this conversation, which is the fact that you all really created this survey based on data from June 2023. But beyond that, I'm wondering if there were any other questions or curiosities that the results of this survey left you with, things that you're hoping to dig into further in the future here.
Yeah, Daniel, those are great points. It just keeps coming back to me that we did the survey in June, and these tools they're just evolving, they're improving. More people are getting interested in them, it seems. And I when I look at our data and our findings, I think, what would students say today? And maybe more students would report that they are using AI tools. And so to me, it would be really very interesting to find another cohort of students and ask them similar questions to the ones we asked in this study, and then throw in some additional questions too. I think that would be a great follow up to our research. So we're going to continue exploring students' experience and perspectives on using AI tools to try to discover insights into their needs and how we all can better support them in their educational experiences.
Let me close out here with one question for everybody. So we'll start with Jeff, Joyce, then you, and then Becky. We'll have you close us out here. So take off your research hat for just a second here. Just as folks who have had an opportunity to be in education, learn about AI. I'm curious as we really enter 2024. What's one prediction or what's one opinion you have on AI in education this year?
Well, Daniel, this might seem obvious, but I think AI will continue to grow in education. I think teachers and students will find more ways to use the tools for school assignments. And as I mentioned, it would really be interesting to find another cohort of students, maybe even this spring, and just ask them some of the same questions about AI tool use. I think we're going to see some increases, and there's going to be an upward trend.
Yeah, I totally agree with Jeff. It seems like the high school students' use of AI tools will continue to increase both inside and outside of the classroom. These tools appear to have much potential to enhance students' learning. But as we talked about before, we have seen from students' feedback there are concerns about their appropriate use and potential negative outcomes. So it is important that educators and parents support and guide students in ways to use AI tools appropriately, ethically, and fairly. Also, students may not have access to AI tools due to limited access to digital technologies at home. As schools and educators consider the use of AI tools for teaching and learning, it will be critical to keep in mind the potential inequities in access to AI tools and to support students who may lack access.
I would predict that people will be spending a lot more time thinking about how to incorporate these tools into the school environment and exploring more novel ways for students and teachers to use them. So AI tools may have the potential to promote different ways to advance teaching and learning. Maybe they will promote more personalized and interactive learning. They might generate prompts for formative assessments or perhaps offer ongoing feedback in different situations that haven't done before. So I think they're really going to be seeing kind of new ways in which AI tools can kind of augment what goes on in school and help both educators and students and perhaps even parents along the way.
Jeff, Becky, Joyce, really appreciate your time today. And I very much look forward to checking out some future studies that you all put together around how students are perceiving AI in education. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you,
Been a
Daniel.
Thank you,
pleasure.
Daniel.